Brad Underwood is going to be coaching the Fighting Illini for the rest of his career, and today we discuss if that's a good thing.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome all to another edition of Locked On Illini. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen each and every day. My name is Sonny Brummer, your host here at Locked On Illini, where I continue to provide you coverage daily. That's right, every single day. No such thing as an off season here at Locked On Network. The only thing I ask for in return is if you can smash that like button and just make sure you're subscribed to the channel. It is ultimately my goal to hit 5,000 subs before that opening kickoff against Western Illinois for the Illini football team. I believe it's on August 29th, which is only just a few months away when you really think about it. Today, I wanted to discuss, obviously, we know last week at some point, Illinois had announced that they signed extensions with both coaches, Brett Bielema and Brad Underwood, about having extensions through 2030. And now, this week, details have come out about both of their extensions, and I think some of the details are interesting enough that I kind of want to discuss what this means. And in the second segment, we'll talk about the confidence level I have in these coaches. Today, I'm going to focus on Brad Underwood. And tomorrow, you can watch that episode where I can kind of focus a little bit more on Brett Bielema and the football team. So as I mentioned, the University of Illinois Board of Trustees approved a massive contract extension for Brad Underwood, a 6-year deal through 2031, with the opportunity to extend it up to 4 more years based on NCAA tournament appearances. That means if the Illini keep dancing, this deal could run through 2035. And that's no small commitment. His base salary is $4.4 million a year, but starting in 2026, retention bonuses are going to start kicking in, beginning at $1.15 million and increasing annually to $1.55 by 2030. That's on top of the performance bonuses, $1 million signing bonus in 2025, and 2 massive longevity bonuses, one for $500,000 in 2029 and one for $700,000 in 2031. The bottom line is Brad Underwood is now one of the best compensated coaches in the entire country. And I do think it is well earned. And if you look at the details of the contract, and in particular, you take a look at one line, I think that's what's going to cause a lot of commotion, both positive and negative when it comes to Brad Underwood. And that's the non-compete clause. You see, Brad cannot leave for another college basketball job unless there are certain material changes. This gives Illinois real security, a protection few schools have, and it ensures that our head coach can't just jump ship for the next blue blood that flashes a checkbook. That's not just a smart administration. It's a statement that Illinois is not a stepping stone. We're investing like a powerhouse, and now we're acting like one. So let's talk about why this extension makes perfect sense. Brad took over the program in 2017. At the time, we were struggling. We hadn't been to the NCAA tournament in years. We weren't relative nationally, and let's be honest, we were living in the shadow of what 2005 was at the time. Now, we're at 5 straight NCAA tournament appearances, 6 straight 20-win seasons, 3 Big Ten championships, 2 of them being of the tournament variety, a number 1 seed in 2021, and an Elite 8 run in 2024, the program's best March showing since D. Brown and Darren Williams. That kind of success in the Big Ten, no less, is rare. And it's exactly why you make this sort of commitment. I know there's a lot of fans and detractors of Brad, but it seems like the Illini community, for the most part, all fully supports Josh Whitman. And this is what Josh Whitman had to say when the deal was announced. Brad has rebuilt our proud program and reestablished Illinois as a perennial contender. Against the backdrop of intense change transforming college athletics, he holds steadfast his core values while continuing to evolve and adapt his program to compete at the highest level. And that's the key word. That's always been the key word with Brad Underwood. Adapt. Underwood has embraced NIL. He's reloaded through the transfer portal. He's gone international with his recruiting strategies. He's changed assistants when he felt it was necessary. This isn't a coach that's stuck in his ways or stuck in the past. This is a guy who continues to build a program both for the present with an eye towards the future. You don't give a long-term deal to a guy who's just maintaining. You give it to a guy who continues to want to evolve. And who's this most important for? I believe the recruits. For recruits, this is everything. When you're a 17 or 18-year-old kid choosing a program, you want to know, will the coach I commit to still be there when I'm a junior? Now Illinois can say absolutely yes. It helps in the living room. It helps with transfer portal guys, and it's going to give donors confidence that when they are asked to invest in Illinois basketball, they're not funding instability. They're backing a proven winner. And for fans, this is about pride. For the first time in decades, Illinois basketball isn't chasing consistency. We are consistency. As Brad said in his own words, every night when I walk out to that State Farm Center tunnel and see the sold-out crowd and am greeted by the Orange Crush, I feel that I'm the most fortunate coach in all of college basketball. That kind of mutual respect between coaches and fan bases, that matters. Illinois is doubling down on its basketball identity, and Brad Underwood is going to be the face of it. This deal is a thank you on what's been done and a challenge for what's still ahead. Let's be honest, this story still has some chapters left. A Final Four, a national title, the pieces are in place. Veteran team, deep talent pool, and now long-term coaching stability. We've come a long way from the turbulence of the early 2010s, and today we've got one of the best coaches in college basketball locked in for a decade. Even the Underwood supporters would tell you that Illinois hasn't completely broken through yet. Outside of 2024, we've struggled to make it past that first weekend of March Madness. They've been high seeds and they've had early exits. But you don't just hand out a deal like this just for what has been done. You do it because of where you think the program is headed. And it's obvious now that Josh Whitman thinks Brad has got the program headed in the right direction. The extension is a bet on the next 5 to 10 years, not just the last 5. Look, the roster continues to be stacked with upside. The recruiting classes every single year seem to have some of the best kids in the country wanting to join Illinois. And the schedule is always ambitious. You talk about the Alabamas, the Tennessees, Missouris, and more. Illinois is playing with the big boys, and the administration is now saying, hey, we're done being a stepping stone. We are now a big boy. To me, Brad Underwood is here to win. And quite honestly, the details of this contract extension prove it. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. Look, when I started using Monarch Money, the evidence was clear. I was spending way too much money on fast food. And so me and the missus decided to make a concerted effort to cook a little bit more at home. It's not only healthier, but it's saving us a lot of money and it helps our financial future. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. And welcome back to Locked On Illini. Now that we know, and we just discussed, that the Illini and Brad Underwood are going to be together through 2031, maybe even all the way through 2035. I wanted to take a couple minutes and discuss whether me personally, again, myself, the confidence level I have in this Brad Underwood and Illinois marriage moving forward. Now, it looks like, as I mentioned, that Illinois is going to be the final destination for Brad, and there's going to be no other places that he's going to be coaching. And so ultimately, is this a good marriage for the program and Brad Underwood? Now, obviously, Brad has a lot of detractors online, and I do consider myself more so a Brad Underwood supporter. I'm not blindly following Brad Underwood, but I do think overall he's been an absolute asset to the Illini program. And in my opinion, obviously it's between him and Lou Henson for the greatest coach in Illinois history. Now, keep in mind, I mentioned those two. I know Bill Self coached at Illinois. You don't have to remind me of that. But Lou Henson and Brad Underwood are the only two coaches, I believe Kevin Ducey put this perfectly, to win with their own players. And so that's who, to me, the running is in between. The success of Brad and Lou is unmatched compared to the other coaches. And so that's kind of where I'm setting the bar. If I had to put my confidence level, let's just say 1 through 10 in Brad Underwood moving forward, I would put myself at a solid 8. Again, I know he has his flaws. You don't have to remind me. I'm reminded every single time I make an episode about Brad, and just take a look at the comment section a day or two later. I know his in-game adjustments need some help. But still, overall, I think what he provides for Illinois is a net positive. As I mentioned in that first segment, this is a coach not afraid to adapt. In fact, last year, right around this time, I wrote an op-ed where I talked about why I felt like Illinois should offer Brad Underwood a lifetime extension. Now, it didn't happen last year, but here we are 1 year later, and the bottom line is that's pretty much what they just did, especially with that non-compete clause. Look, sure, Brad Underwood can go off and coach to the NBA, but I don't think he's really ever looked in that sort of direction. So I don't see that happening. The de facto is they basically hired him to a lifetime contract, which is what I asked for a year ago. So let me ask, why did I want it back then? And do those reasons still apply today? As I mentioned, I know Brad has his flaws, but I wanted to take a second to focus on some of his strengths because I think his strengths far outweigh his flaws. One thing Brad Underwood has a very good knack for is building a good assistant coach staff. It was just a few years back when Brad lost all three of his assistant coach, Stephen Gentry, Orlando Antigua, and Chin Coleman, all in one offseason. A lot of Illini fans thought all hope was lost. That, you know what, hey, it's time to take 2 or 3 steps back. What did Brad do? He upgraded. He revamped that assistant coaching staff, and reality is Illinois didn't lose a beat. So much so that last year, right around this time, Orlando Antigua, the guy I just mentioned, arguably a top 5 assistant coach in the entire country, decided to come back. That's because of the relationship he had built with Brad. He knows Brad is no nonsense, and he's a overall really good boss and someone to work under. During that summer a few years back, Brad took forever to announce the last hire on that coaching staff. There was rumors about Tim Anderson, a former assistant coach of DePaul, obviously a big influence in the city of Chicago. It just took forever to come to fruition, but it eventually did. And what happened? Well, Tim Anderson ended up becoming one of the best assistant coaches in the entire country, and a big reason Illinois was able to bring in guys like Morez Johnson and Ty Rogers. A guy who was not working at the time, Brad Underwood plucked off the street, brought into the staff. And again, Tim Anderson became one of the best coaches in the game. There's a big controversy when Brad decided to promote Jeff Alexander to an official assistant coach's role. Now, Jeff is a coach who has followed Brad throughout most of his career and kind of his right-hand man. And people were worried that, when you're at a program like Illinois where you're trying to compete for national championships, should that be a place for someone to have their first taste as an assistant coach? Brad took a gamble, and in my opinion, Brad absolutely succeeded. Jeff Alexander now is a key reason that we have the presence that we do internationally that we do. In fact, I don't think there's another school in the country that has a bigger brand name in Europe basketball right now than the University of Illinois. And again, that's a big advantage for the University of Illinois because locally, Illinois is not going to compete with Duke. Illinois is not going to compete with the North Carolina or the Kansases, especially for those kids that have grew up here in the United States. But in Europe, you're talking about relationships that have been built with Tomislav Ivica. You're talking about Kasper Shakushonis. You're building a European pipeline, and a lot of that has to do with Jeff Alexander. I know that the jury still seems to be out on Tyler Underwood and Zach Hammer, and that's something that this Illini fan base is going to debate ad nauseum. Right now, I am still pro Tyler. I just think that when you look at the offensive numbers over the last couple of years where he's been in charge of this offense, Illinois has been a top 15 program. Zach Hammer, sure, I do think that there are certain areas of improvement, but realistically, when I look at the way this roster is built, I don't know just how sound or at least what the ceiling of this team would be defensively anyway. Now, is that Brad Underwood's fault? Absolutely. But again, those two are very young assistant coaches, but with Brad's track record right now, I'll continue for at least another year giving the benefit of the doubt. But I'll be honest, another year where they struggled defensively like they did this past year, I do think that maybe Brad's going to have to go in a different direction with Zach Hammer, who for the most part is in charge of the defensive side of the basketball. Another thing that Brad has done really well is build relationships with certain types of players. When you talk about Coleman Hawkins, you talk about Terrence Shannon Jr., who right now is just absolutely destroying it in the NBA playoffs. Finally, Terrence, you get a chance to perform, and I will be talking about that hopefully sometime this week, elaborating a little bit more on Shannon's success the other night in the NBA playoff. But you see those that stay in the program continue to be very loyal to Brad Underwood. Anytime you put a microphone in front of Ayo Dosunmu, Ayo can't help but talk good things about Brad and the Illinois program, and that is ultimately going to resonate. He's done it with high school preps. He's done it with transfer portal players, and now he's obviously dipping his toe in the pool of international prospects, where right now, when I'm recording this episode, I do like the players that he's brought in. Now, if I'm being honest, I had never heard of most of these guys even just a couple of months ago. And so I've spent the last couple of weeks, maybe month, really looking over some of the film and whatever the live games that I can find streaming online. And I do think that I'm very optimistic on this season moving forward. But again, it just shows that Brad's willing to change. And I think right now, where all of us are trying to figure out what the future of college athletics is going to look like, both football and basketball, I like the fact that we have a coach in charge who can adapt with the wind. Now, having said all that, Brad Underwood's now going to be compensated as a top 10 coach in the entire country. And if I'm being honest, I don't know right now if he is one of the 10 best coaches in the country. Based on resume strictly alone, probably not. Now, I will say context matters. There is, when they are a one seed, they go up against a team like Loyola, who is a top 10 RPI team. That's not like losing a normal game in the NCAA tournament. Should they still have won? Absolutely. But was Loyola underseeded? Absolutely. And one of those years they lost to a Houston team, which you see what they were developing into now. The Cougars today are one of the premier programs in the entire country. But even I'll tell you that some people will call that context and other people will call it excuses. And I will say that both of those groups are correct. Moving forward, if Brad is going to be paid like a top 10 coach, he needs to make it to that second weekend. No questions asked. I said it myself. My full expectations for this next season is to make it to that second weekend. If you want to tell me a down year is making it to the round of 32, I will accept that. But I think the expectation from here on out should be Sweet 16 with a reasonable expectation of making it to the Elite Eight and every now and then sneaking into the Final Four. And once that happens, who knows? What I do know is that Brad continues to bring in the type of talent, the elite talent that can get us there. Now, is Brad going to be able to overcome his own shortcomings and finally prevail and hang a banner in State Farm Center? None of us really know that. But what we do know is that we've got 5 to maybe 10 years to find out. And welcome back to Locked On Illini. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button. Look, it costs you guys absolutely nothing, but what it does do, it benefits me because it's going to show this show in front of other faces of people who maybe have not heard of what Locked On Illini is and maybe are interested in the beloved. And hey, who knows? And look, there's a reason that we are the fastest growing Illini channel in all of YouTube. It's because the community continues to support one another and grow bigger. For today's last segment, I wanted to talk about Illini men's golf. Their 2025 season has come to a close this past weekend, and unfortunately, it was a little earlier than most of us wanted. Let's get right to it. Illinois entered the NCAA Championships as the 11th seed and had a somewhat promising start in California, firing a solid 2 under in Friday's opening round. But after that, the wheels just seemingly all came off. Illinois posted a combined 25 over par across Saturday and Sunday, including a 16 over team round on Sunday, which is the second worst of the entire field that day. The collapse dropped the Illini all the way to 18th place, 6 shots short of 15th, which is what they would have needed to do to advance to the final round. And just like that, Illini Golf's national title hopes are over. Coach Mike Small didn't sugarcoat it. He called Sunday a total meltdown and admitted the tournament was a microcosm of the entire season, up and down. Flashes of brilliance, but plagued by inconsistency. The team was very youthful, and despite finishing 12th nationally, a number most programs would celebrate, Small made it clear that Illinois golf is now holding itself to a higher standard. The team expected to compete for another national title, and not making match play is a serious disappointment. Still, there is a silver lining. Buchanan's going to be the only departure, and Illinois is going to be returning Herendine, Voice, and a talented young core that gained valuable postseason experience. And Coach Small emphasized that next year's success is going to depend entirely on development and consistency. Let's be clear, Illinois golf isn't going anywhere, and this is one of the most respected programs in the entire country as long as Mike Small is in charge. Even in a down year, they're finishing 12th in the nation. That says a lot. And I assure you next season that I'll do my best to cover Illini golf even more than I did this past season. Why? It's because that's what you guys want. I come on here every single day saying, hey, look, if there's a certain topic that you guys want covered or a sport that you want to be covered, let me know. Find me on your favorite social medias. Do a search for Locked On Illini or The Sunny V, or just email me at talkillini@gmail.com. And a lot of you have asked for more golf coverage. A lot of you have asked for baseball coverage, and the majority of you have asked for a lot of women's basketball coverage. So I assure you I'm going to go all in on women's basketball next offseason. But again, if there's a certain topic that you really want covered, reach out to me. It's my show, but I want it to be a community effort. I want you to feel like you guys are a part of it. Thank you for making Locked On Illini your first listen today. And for your second listen, make sure you check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings, and be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to wrap it up for today's episode. Again, email me at talkillini@gmail.com if you're interested in a couple Locked On Illini meetups we're going to be having in the month of June. June 20th, we're going to be meeting in Wrigleyville. We're all going to go to the Cubs game together. And a week later, we're all going to get together for the NBA lottery where we get to see Kasper Siakishonis and hopefully Will Riley start their NBA dreams. Until next time, ILL. Love you guys.